So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my plots, and I'm going to go ahead and link the two together. So if I start out here, I see the x-axis is 3 and the y-axis is 1. So I come here and find 3 and 1, and that's going to be not quite right there, but more like right there. Okay, so I'm going to pause. I'm going to come back in just a second, and I'm going to have the whole thing plotted out for you guys so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so as you can see here, I have all the points plotted out. Now my next step is to draw the best fit straight line. So because I have this app, I can do that pretty easy without a straight edge. You guys are going to need to use a straight edge when you do this. So I've made my straight edge, and hold on a second, let me ungroup these so that way I can move just the line. So I come back here and move the line, and what I want to do is I want to get the line to represent through most of the data like that. And there's my line. Now the next step, which we're going to see in the next step, is going to be looking at the slope of this line. So I've made my axes. Let's review what I've done. I've collected my data, and from the data I have made my x-axis, which is time, my y-axis, which is position. I've plotted out all of my points, and then I drew the best fit line that represented the data. Now, I want you to notice some things. Because I made a straight line, you see this point right here, that doesn't really fall on the line, but that's okay because I'm looking for a general trend. And I'm looking for that relationship. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find 2 points. So I'm going to pick this point down here, and then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to pick this point up here, and those are going to be the 2 points I'm going to use to find my slope. Because remember, slope is going to be rise divided by run. So I have to figure out how high it goes up and divide that by how far over it goes, and that's going to give me my slope. So here I've circled my 2 points. My point right here, that's P1, and my point up here, that's P2. P1 has a coordinate system of P1, and that's going to be at, if I look here, I can see that it's at this point, which is 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is at point 3. So this is 3. And then on my y-axis, I look over here, and that's at 1. So my coordinate is at 3, 1, which is what I'm going to use whenever I plot my slope. So here, up here, is my P2. So I got to look down here. This is my first point, which is 15.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down P2, and that's at 15.5. And my other point, which is over here, and that is at 9.5. So I'm going to write down 9.5. I'm going to use this point right here and this point right here to do the back side of the paper. So you guys put your own data, so we're going to take 3 and 1 and 15.5 and 9.5. So let's look at the next page. So here's where I'm going to do my slope calculation. So my P1 is going to go here, and my P2 is going to go here. So let's go ahead and put those values in. So as you can see, I put 3 and 1 for my P1 and 15.5 and 9.5 for my P2. Now I'm going to find my change in Y. Now change in Y, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the difference between 9.5 and 1. The difference between 9.5 and 1. So I'm going to take these 2 points right here, and the difference between 9.5 minus 1 is going to give me 8.5. So I'm going to take 8.5 and I'm going to put it into that box right there. So 8.5 goes here. The next thing I got to find is my change in x, So that's these two values. That's 15.5 minus 3. 15.5 minus 3. So I'll write this down, 15.5 minus 3, and that's going to give me 12.5, which is what I'm going to put down in that box right there. All right, so now that I have my two values, I got my rise, which I rose 8.5 meters, and my run, it took me 12.5 seconds to go 8.5 meters. So I can find my slope, which is my change in y, 8.5, divided by my change in x, which is 12.5, and I put that down, so I'll say 8.5, and I'm going to divide that by 12.5, and when I do my calculation, that comes out to be, at 6.68. So it's equal to 6.68. So I put down 0.68 as my answer. And I'm just going to wait for a couple seconds for you guys to write this down before we go on to the next part, part 2, which is where we're going to put all of this stuff together. All right, so now we're going to wrap up this lab by answering the questions for part 2. And all we're doing is just filling in the blanks. Now, y is when we have here is y, we have slope, we have x, and we have b. Well, first off, I wanted to point out that we're going to take out b. We're not going to do that. So we're going to focus on just the other three, which is the y and the slope, and the y slope and the x. So when we did this, we found that the y, looking back at the other graph, y represented position. So we're going to write down here position, okay? Or a better way of saying it would be d, or distance. Our slope represented a change in position over change in time. That's usually a velocity, or we're going to symbolize it with a v. And then finally, for our x value, that represented time. So we're going to put down here time, and we symbolize time with a lowercase t. And now we're going to put all three of these together at the bottom for our final equation. So for our final equation that we write down for all of this, putting it all together, we're going to use the baseline equation. The baseline equation we're going to include starts with y is equal to mx plus b, but we're not going to put those down. And some of these we're actually going to take out. Like, for example, I said before, we're not going to be using b, so we're going to take that part out of the equation. And so what we're going to focus on is y, m, and b. We're going to replace y with distance. We're going to place m with velocity, and we're going to place x with time. And so when we rewrite this equation, we get d is equal to m, which is velocity, and x, which is time. And there's your final part, and that's the lab. Make sure that when you finish this, you turn it in. Make sure you put your name on it before you turn it in, because I've gotten several people who turn papers in that don't have a name, and I can't give them credit for it. So make sure you do that. I hope this helped you out, and we'll see you in class.